All right, so we're back and we're going to be going to our next section and talking about a couple of discussion questions to frame the overall course. So what I'd like to do is break the group into two different groups here. So if we can have this side of the room read this question here, and then this side of the room read this question here. So if you guys can just read the questions, why does the American Red Cross place emphasis on diversity and who is responsible in promoting it? In this group, you guys are going to talk about why our respect and appreciation of difference important in our work. So spend about 30 seconds to 45 seconds talking about it, and then I'm going to get back to you. So go ahead. All right, so we're going to bring it back together as a group. I keep knocking over my thing. So as a trainer-trainer break, this is one of the areas where you have flexibility in how you do this portion of it. With the small group, you may just have a classroom style and ask it. If you have a bigger group, you can break it out. If you have a natural breakout here, if you want to encourage participation. So this is a little flexibility point that you have here. So this group here, why does the American Red Cross place emphasis on diversity, and whose responsibility is it?
Okay, who's our spokesman? Okay, man. Oh, okay, yeah, you're supposed to.
I think we decided that everyone has a responsibility
Yes.
in promoting it.
Yes.
And, Natalie brought up a great point that a lot of times we think that leadership has the responsibility to do it first or better,
Right.
or everyone's supposed to follow their role, but the reality is that once you
Absolutely.
step in, it is your responsibility as well. So
Great. What about that first part of the question, the why?
the emphasis
Yeah.
to be able to serve the Red Cross mission.
Yeah. Because once again, it's a worldwide mission.
Yeah.
And you got different people, part of the American Red Cross, all over the world.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So you were saying that it's everybody's responsibility, it's part of the worldwide mission. The key buzzword that you want to think about as facilitators is that this is a business imperative as well. As an organization that has a whole office dedicated to this, and that we have the responsibility, it's everybody's responsibility, but this is the reason why. It's a business imperative that we follow this through. So this group here, why are respect and appreciation of difference are important to our work?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about, respect goes a long way into developing relationships with partners, other organizations we work with our communities, our workforce, and so that being a key component of that. But it also really ties back to our fundamental principles as a humanitarian organization and that worldwide organization, as Daryl said, really being able to ensure that people trust the American Red Cross and can come to us for services and know that we're here to serve them and work with them in the best way possible, where they may not have that opportunity with other organizations or agencies.
Exactly. Perfect response. It really helps increase that ability to effectively communicate too. It's one of the keys that you want to mention here. All right, so hopefully that helped frame some of our discussion points for the rest of the course. So let's talk about the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and about their mission and vision. So these are just big statements that we have in the organization to help drive cultural competency and diversity in the organization. So Vicky, can I have you read the mission for us?
The American Red Cross will consistently deliver its products, goods, and services in a culturally competent manner.
Perfect. And Daryl, if you can read the vision statement and then the first bullet point.
The American Red Cross inspires to be an organization fully committed to diversity and inclusion by creating and maintaining a diverse, high-performing workforce of employees and volunteers who reflect all communities we serve.
Michael, can you read the rest of it?
Yeah, cultivating a collaborative, inclusive, and respectful work environment that empowers all contributors, leveraging diverse partnerships, all of which help to ensure culturally competent service delivery, supported by effective community leadership and engagement.
Thank you for reading. So trainer break, again, whenever you read a definition or mission statement, it's one of those things where it can be a lot to read and look at. So it's definitely helpful to have volunteers read and to keep them engaged. And one of the key points you want to mention here is that culturally competent is one of the highlighted words here, as we really want to make that the theme of the entire course, that everything that we're doing is about serving with cultural competency, and it's reflected here in the mission and vision of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion Services.
Yes. What's meant by leveraging diverse partnerships?
Great question. So in this sense too, we know that we can't always do our work alone, right? With the Red Cross, we have many partners that we deal with on disaster response to even enterprise-wide and biomed. There's other places that we work with together with partnerships, and we want to be inclusive and diverse in leveraging those types of people that we work with too. So I think that's what that really goes with. Okay. All right, so what is diversity? So here you will see a chart that is made by Garden Swartz in Rowe that really emphasize the 4 different levels of diversity to give you guys different aspects on how different parts of our life are impacted. So here in the center, you have yourself. This is you and your personality, what makes that personality. And in the first inner circle, you see the internal dimensions. So these include aspects of diversity over which we have no control, right? Some of these include your age, race, ethnicity, your physical abilities, right? These are things that you're born with. Then you have some external dimensions that we have some control, but they change throughout our lifetime. You know, your geographic location and where you live, your marital status, your income, that sort of thing. And then the last way to think about diversity is this organizational dimension. So depending on you as a Red Crosser or if you're affiliated with another organization or group, there are certain cultural dimensions that exist within that group about what type of work that you do, what your management status is, what affiliations you have, your work locations, seniority. So those are things that you want to take a look at. And so at each one of these layers of diversity, this creates an aspect of our personality and behavior that influences how we make decisions and how we see others too. So it's something to keep in mind, something to think about when it's not just a simple definition of encompassing all those different characteristics and traits. You guys listed some of them here when I asked you that question about what makes the Red Cross diverse. In some cases, you can see that it's replicated here, right? The partners that we work with, sometimes that's organizational dimensions that we have, the work in specific neighborhoods, that can be geographic location, educational background, again, that external dimensions, our cultures, right? That's kind of that internal piece of it too, that what we grow up with may change as well. So each one of these you can almost tie back into these charts. And so that's a really nice train-the-trainer break. This is where you really want to take what was written in that introduction and tie it back into this chart. So there's kind of a connection there. Any questions about this? And in your participant guide, something that you can take a look at with and move forward with as well. So we're going to move into one of our first exercises, and it's our diversity circle exercise. And so thinking about diversity dimensions that we have here, in this exercise, what we're going to do is unpack those different dimensions of diversity as they're really present in all of us. The exercise that we're about to do is going to help us learn about our backgrounds and differences as we appreciate each other as humans, but most importantly, Red Crossers serving the mission. So what I'm going to be doing is asking each of you to step forward if you or someone that you know identifies with this particular statement. Please be aware that all the different statements in this exercise is voluntary. If you find yourself feeling uncomfortable, do not want to participate, please know that we respect your decision. So it's completely up to you to participate. By stepping forward and looking around you, you'll also learn that you may know others have similar experiences or backgrounds to you. So this is a silent activity, and we want you to reflect on that, and then I'll ask you some few questions. So train-the-trainer break, this is a new introduction to this activity and really wanting to frame what's going to happen. In the previous version, we jumped straight into the exercise and then there was a debrief from it, and the statements were very long and people were feeling kind of not knowing how to feel when all these statements were happening. And when some people felt like they were forced to do it versus stating that this is voluntary, it also made an uncomfortable, forced environment. So this is a new opening statement that's in the facilitator script to help anybody that's presenting this to open that up and set the stage for the activity. When you actually get into this portion of it, I know we're in a conference room setting here, but you do want to try to get into an open space if possible, to get into a circle as much as you can. I would have normally had you guys stand up and move to a certain section and get into a circle first and then read this portion of it just to kind of get the blood running. At this point in the course, you're probably about maybe 20-25 minutes into the course so far. You've done your introductions, you've started framing it, and this is the first activity. And the sooner you can kind of get to this is where people start really that learning process. Any questions about this?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about the dimensions of diversity and why that was chosen and how
Yes.
they work in with this activity?
Yeah, that's a great point. So the diversity dimensions was a great framework for the actual statements. And I'll actually go through and read some of the statements because they changed a little bit from the original version as well, that each of the statements now actually tie back to one of these dimensions here. So it's a very nice correlation to what we just talked about into the exercise, and it kind of keeps it framed as the decisions that we make to identify with these statements are also based on sharing with others and how we, reflect on seeing what others are doing and are different too. So that's the tie-in that we have there. Other questions?
Yeah, when you facilitate this activity, do you participate or do you usually let the participants just go for it on their own?
That's a great question. For me personally, I love to actually be part of the circle when I'm facilitating. So that allows me to, be a participant and, join the circle as well when I read a statement. I do that normally for the first couple of ones to kind of, start it and feel that connectedness. And as it gets deeper into it, I'm reading more and more statements. Then it becomes less about me and more about the participants, right? So I'm almost setting an example by participating up front, maybe in the first half when we go through some of the ethnicities and things and some of the basic things. But as you get deeper into it, let the participants see and feel, but you're a part of the circle versus either standing outside of it or you don't want to be standing right in the middle of it too. That's a little bit uncomfortable. So great questions. So I'm going to just read the statements that we have here to see that which ones have changed, which ones have stayed the same. They were condensed as well to kind of keep it more succinct. So I'm just going to read them and note that each time you read them, you always want to read that statement that says, please step into the circle if you are X. Please look at those that are with you. Please look at those who are on the outside. They can be your allies. Please join them. And this is key. So as a facilitator, you want to make sure you rinse and repeat that statement because the debrief is really that we are all allies in mission no matter what we are. So let me just go through and read the statements here. So please step into the circle if you are female. Please step into the circle if you are male. And note that I would normally say that phrase, but I'm just kind of going through the list here. Please step into the circle if you are white. Please step into the circle if you are Asian American. Please step into the circle if you are African American. Please step into the circle if you are Hispanic or Latino. Please step into the circle if you are Middle Eastern. Please step into the circle if you are Native American. Please step into the circle if you are foreign born. Please step into the circle if you or someone you know has struggled with a medical or mental health condition. Please step into the circle if you or someone in your family or close circle of friends is gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. Please step into the circle if you practice a religion. Please step into the circle if you have more than 3 siblings. Please step into the circle if you were raised by a single parent. Please step into the circle if you or someone you know has experienced the effects of drug addiction and/or alcoholism. Please step into the circle if you were raised by someone other than your biological parents. Please step into the circle if you have lived in another culture other than your own. Please step into the circle if you have ever been a victim of discrimination of any kind. Please step into the circle if you are an employee. Please step into the circle if you are a volunteer. Please step into the circle if you believe or have believed that your background may have been a barrier to success. Please step into the circle if you supervise others. Please step into the circle if you have a college university degree. Please step into the circle if you or someone you know has experienced a natural or man-made disaster. Now take a seat if you are a human and support the American Red Cross. And you'll notice the order of those change too. And one of the things that we saw in the original version is that it started light and then it started getting heavy, but then it just kept getting heavier and heavier. So by the end of it, you really kind of were like just going into this mountain of emotional feeling of how you're getting involved. But now mixing it up allows you to kind of go through an arc where you can kind of connect with it, but then it also kind of brings you back to Red Cross mission by the end of it too, right? So that we're finding ways to still be allies in mission without getting too personal. And that's where we really wanted to emphasize the change in this particular exercise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, and so that's the reason for the arc that you saw the changes in the versions that we did too. Okay, all right. And so then after the section, you want to just always debrief about if anybody has feedback or thoughts. Is there any way that people can think about how we can become better allies to each other? It's another question of the Facilitator Guide that helps talk about the debrief. But it's really important to make sure that you debrief the exercise. Do not go on to the next slide without having an opportunity for people to talk about what they just experienced, because that's where the learnings happen and where people really need to reflect. And in one of the earlier slides, what's that personal insight about yourself that's going to help you as a Red Crosser? This is one of those key things.